Throughout the early release season of Riftbound in China, Master Yi's Wuju Bladesman has emerged as the strongest deck in the Proving Grounds mini-set and the most consistent answer for Kaisa, albeit still not a great one. With 5 finals appearances spanning across 4 regional events, no other deck has competed for the regional title more than Master Yi. Among these appearances, there's been some pretty distinct deck lists that have all opted for Master Yi Honed as their chosen champion. I'm Rose with 4 Hearts, and today we're going to break down how to play Wuju Bladesman in the Origins format. Wuju Bladesman is a calm and body legend with an ability that increases the might of units by 2 when they're defending alone. This domain combination creates a deck built around units that are strong up front with many options that can be used offensively or defensively to strengthen and protect them. Its identity is rooted in playing mighty units as early as possible and holding them for as long as possible. This can be achieved by taking the offensive early and holding until you find bigger units to transition into, or by sitting back to channel runes and draw as much as possible to then close out games with overwhelming might once your opponent has exhausted their resources. Ultimately, this legend loves to create war of attrition scenarios since most of your defensive spells will cost less than the opposing deck's offensive spells, and you'll almost always have bigger units. We'll be taking a look at the general strategies for both Master Yi Honed and Master Yi Meditative for this breakdown, so you can get a feel of how each likes to build around the Wuju Bladesman legend. For Master Yi Honed, we'll be going off with the Dazzling Aurora build, and for Master Yi Meditative, we'll be going off of an aggro hold playstyle. The main appeal of the Dazzling Aurora build is that it simply has the best late game of anything in the meta. With cards like Mountain Drake, Devlin Predator, Tasty Feyfolk, Volibear Imposing, and White Flame Protector, this deck can become very overwhelming very quickly. Getting one of these units out for free every turn creates a decent offense and one of the most intimidating defenses in the current meta. The biggest key to success here is the excellent rune acceleration access with Catalyst of Aeons and Mobilize that can also turn into draw support in the late game. Without these cards, Dazzling Aurora wouldn't even be usable, but with them, it turns into one of the greatest threats in the body domain. In addition to the rune acceleration, the calm side of the Wuju Bladesman legend provides a nice pool of draw support, with Find Your Center, Meditation, and Discipline to help you find Dazzling Aurora faster and more reliably. And finally, also because of the calm domain inclusion, this deck has a lot of defensive options that can be used to help protect your units. Defy, Windwall, and Zhonya's Hourglass are some key inclusions. The biggest issue with Dazzling Aurora is that it only plays from behind. The early game is exclusively intended for accelerating runes and drawing as much as possible to get Dazzling Aurora online. This forces every game into a race against the clock as you have to find Dazzling Aurora before your opponent scores too many points. Otherwise, games will become impossible to win. Due to the all-in nature of this build, its strategy is incredibly one-dimensional. This makes it really easy for opponents to sideboard into this deck and gives them so much time in the early game to set up a defense for your late game power spike. Some of the most glaring defenses being the removal spells found in the Order and Chaos domains. Mighty units require a lot of investment, especially in games where you're unable to find Dazzling Aurora in a timely manner. This makes it pretty easy for decks that can remove your units without going to showdowns to shut you out of the game entirely. And finally, the combination of body and calm domains leaves you with virtually 0 ways to disrupt your opponent directly aside from charm. With everything in this deck being geared towards showdowns, it's really hard to stop decks outside of combat. When it comes to Master Yi Meditative, you're really looking to take advantage of the Wuju Bladesman ability in isolated combat. Having a 4 might unit that increases itself to 8 with the right amount of runes, which then goes to 10 when holding by itself, even before playing might increasing spells, can be really difficult for some decks to play into. Throwing cards like Mask of Foresight and even 2-drops like Stalwart Poro and Pit Rookie can become monsters on defense. Generally speaking, this deck has a very balanced approach to offense and defense. When factoring in might increasing spells, defensive spells and gear, and the preference to only attack with 1 unit at a time, showdowns become much simpler with significantly less risk involved compared to other decks. One of the more exciting aspects of this deck is its ability to bait opponents into taking bad showdowns thanks to all of its combat tricks. Between its might increasing spells, spell negation, Mask of Foresight, and Zhonya's Hourglass, this deck has so many threatening cards that opponents always have to consider before attempting a showdown. And finally, while the aggro hold iteration of Wuju Bladesman doesn't lean quite as far into body's ramping options like the Dazzling Aurora or Tempo builds, there are still valuable considerations that can make the list much more flexible. The weaknesses of Master Yi Meditative are pretty much identical to the Dazzling Aurora build, with the main difference being that this deck struggles pretty heavily into token decks like Herald of the Arcane and some Hand of Noxus builds. The early game for the Dazzling Aurora builds is reserved for channeling runes until you've reached 9 for your Dazzling Aurora power spike. The other priority is drawing as many cards as possible until you find Dazzling Aurora. These 2 goals are imperative as games are unplayable until Dazzling Aurora is online. Another optional goal is to play a Zhonya's Hourglass to base if you end any turns with 2 extra runes. This allows you to have one ready before you played any units. And of course, you want to be thinking about which battlefield you'll attempt to conquer first once Dazzling Aurora has been played. The biggest priority for Dazzling Aurora builds in the mid-game is to simply play Dazzling Aurora. By this point in the game, your opponent should already be on at least 3 points and be holding at least 1 battlefield. This is assuming you found your Dazzling Aurora as early as possible. If you wait until the late game to play Dazzling Aurora or you don't find it until then, it's practically guaranteed that the game is already lost. Throughout the mid-game, you want to be holding at least 9 runes. This allows you to replace a killed Dazzling Aurora or play units from hand if you have any, to double the amount of units you're playing per turn. As a general rule of thumb, you should always keep at least 1 unit in base so you can swing back on offense in case you lose a showdown at either battlefield. And finally, you should still be looking to save as many runes as possible, as winning with this deck can often rely on late game plays that require a lot of runes for offense and defense. The Dazzling Aurora late game is pretty straightforward, and if you get to this point, the game should pretty much be won. For these last couple points, you'll be looking to hold your rune advantage to give yourself as many options to close the game out as possible. Protecting your big units is a major priority, as this deck's preferred win condition is through holding. In situations where you're not holding one or both battlefields, you'll want to prep your hand and runes for a big one-turn swing as a final gambit to close the game out. And you'll definitely want to look out for Confront and Charm for a 16 might White Flame Protector offense or defensive wins through isolating a threatening unit in your opponent's control via Charm. The ideal start for Master Yi Meditative is to conquer a battlefield with a Stalwart Poro and begin holding as quickly as possible. You want to be holding at least 1 battlefield at all times with this deck, so conquering early is really important. Next, you'll want to play a Pit Rookie and buff something that you're confident won't die until the mid-game. This will enable you to play Wallet for free once you're ready to play Master Yi Meditative. Alongside a Poro holding a battlefield and a buff from Pit Rookie, you'll want to start pacing your tempo with Mask of Foresight drops. Ideally, you'll play 1 in the early game and follow up throughout the rest of the game to hold on to your might advantage. And finally, setting up 1 or 2 backup units as some added insurance is a good idea if you can do so without over-exhausting runes. Master Yi Meditative is still looking to hold as much as possible in the mid-game, but without overplaying combat tricks. If you need to let a small unit die to establish a better board on your following turn, that's completely fine, as the win condition for this deck is reliant on getting your opponent to waste resources in the early game. Around this time, you'll also be looking to play Master Yi Meditative with any combination of Confront, Wallop, or First Mate to immediately conquer a battlefield and begin to put much more pressure on opponents to engage with you. Setting up a second Mask of Foresight is an indicator of good tempo, makes it a little harder for your opponents to deal with you, and helps you reclaim lost battlefields. And you'll still be looking to play some backup units to your base. Unlike the Dazzling Aurora build, the late game is the most challenging section for Master Yi Meditative. Once you're here, you'll continue trying to hold at all costs, and if things have gone optimally, hopefully you'll have more resources remaining over your opponent. An optional goal here is to set up a third Mask of Foresight if you're facing a deck that has the potential to outramp you. And similar to Dazzling Aurora, you'll be looking for your defensive and offensive spells to help protect your units and close the game. The Dazzling Aurora build excels against decks that can't remove big units easily and struggles into decks that can. This results in pretty one-dimensional matchups where Dazzling Aurora timing and spell interactions dictate most of how games play out. The best matchups for Dazzling Aurora are Loose Cannon, Nine-Tailed Fox, Radiant Dawn, and Bounty Hunter. Some neutral matchups are Swift Scout, Blind Monk, Relentless Storm, and the Boss. And the worst matchups are Darkchild, Daughter of the Void, Hand of Noxus, and Herald of the Arcane. The Meditative build has very similar matchups, but struggles more heavily into decks that have a variety of damaging spells and has an easier time holding off some ramping decks. The best matchups for Meditative are Loose Cannon, Bounty Hunter, Nine-Tailed Fox, and Relentless Storm. Some neutral matchups are Radiant Dawn, Swift Scout, Blind Monk, and the Boss. And the worst matchups are Hand of Noxus, Herald of the Arcane, Darkchild, and Daughter of the Void. The mandatory cards for the Dazzling Aurora build are of course Wuju Bladesman and 1 Master Yi Honed. Some cards you should definitely include in your list are 2 to 3 White Flame Protector, 3 Deadbloom Predator, 3 Defy, 3 Charm, 2 to 3 Discipline, 3 Find Your Center, 3 Catalyst of Aeons, and 3 Zoni's Hourglass. And of course, 3 Dazzling Aurora is mandatory for the Dazzling Aurora iteration of this deck. Some units that can help to round out your build are Clockwork Keeper, Stalwart Poro, Pit Rookie, First Mate, and Kiana Victorious if you're playing the Tempo variant instead of the Dazzling Aurora variant. Or Tasty Feyfolk, Mountain Drake, and Volibear Imposing if you're sticking to the Dazzling Aurora list. Other cards that are helpful are Unguard, Confront, Mobilize, Meditation, Windwall, and Primal Strength. You definitely want to choose Aspirant's Climb and Obelisk of Power as 2 of your 3 battlefields and can slot in Hallowed Tomb or Sigil of the Storm as your 3rd. And for runes, you'll want to take anywhere from 4 to 8 body runes and 4 to 8 calm runes depending on your power distribution. The mandatory cards for the aggro hold build are Wuju Bladesman and 2 Master Yi Meditative. Some cards you should definitely include in your list are 3 Stalwart Poro, 2 to 3 Pit Rookie, 2 First Mate, 3 Defy, 2 to 3 Unguard, 3 Confront, 3 Discipline, 2 Wallop, 3 Find Your Center, 2 to 3 Primal Strength, and 3 Mask of Foresight. Some cards that can round out your build are Master Yi Honed, Kiana Victorious, Unyielding Spirit, Charm, Meditation, and Zoni's Hourglass. Dreaming Tree, Fortified Position, Grove of the God Willow, Reaver's Row, and Star's Hit Peak are all solid battlefield options. And for your runes, you'll want to take anywhere from 4 to 8 body runes and 4 to 8 calm runes depending on your power distribution. If you're looking to play Wuju Bladesman, then here are the lists we recommend. That wraps up our Wuju Bladesman Legend Breakdown. If you found this video helpful, feel free to like and subscribe. Good luck in your games, and thanks for watching.